if you're leading the business, you have that second person that is most important to you to make those business decisions to further your company. We all have a second in there somewhere. And it's not that you're weaker or that you're less than or that you're not important, because you are the most important, because you're the one that gives that support to hold them up.
Welcome to the TCS Women Podcast. Let's get started.
Welcome to the stage to the TCS Women Chairwoman, Carla Bonner.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Top Contractor School, first Women in Construction Luncheon and Workshop. It's an honor to stand here today among a group of talented, resilient, and ambitious women who, whether through their careers or by partnership, are bringing much needed diversity to an industry that has long awaited your impact. Thank you all for coming today. Let's get started with Lillian Callaway, our pillar of strength and someone we all go to when we need a little advice.
Okay. I get to be the first. Actually, that was exciting to me because then there's no expectations. It's just me. But I want you to think back about, for most of you except for Paisley, about when you graduated. What did you think you were going to do in 5 years? Or what did you think you were going to do even in 10 years? For me, I didn't think within 4 years of graduation that I was going to be married and that I was going to have kids or even start a business. All I wanted to do was to be a wife and a mom. That was my goal in life. And especially as you're a senior in high school, everybody wants you to look at higher education and what are you going to do? And for me, that wasn't it. Now, a lot of my friends knew exactly what they wanted to do, but even if you knew what you wanted to do, how many of you are doing that today? Usually not many of you are using your degree that you graduate in. Now, it's always helpful, but you're not using it. I do know that knowing that I wanted to be a wife and a mom was useful with my priorities in life and where I wanted to go. I graduated in 1981 is when Keith and I started dating. And 42 years later, never did I think that we'd be owning a business that was grossing in the mid 8 figures. So that's how drastically your plan can change without even knowing it, a blink of an eye. I'll let you know a little bit about myself. I'm one of 8 kids. I'm the youngest daughter. My mom was a stay-at-home mom, and my dad was a general contractor. I was raised in about the most secure home that you could ever think of, as far as not moving around, the things that you did. I lived on the same block till I got married. I went to one grade school, one junior high, one high school, had one doctor my whole life, and went to the same 2 checkers at the grocery store my entire life. So as far as stability, that was me. And security was good because that's who I am. I needed that security because there were a lot of changes, especially in contracting, because our family knew feast and famine. And my mom knew during the summer months that she had to can, she had to put food up, she had to save, had to get all the things planned ahead within about a 3-month time span, because that's what contracting was in Oregon. There was no year-round contracting. It was 3 months' time, and then you were off for 9 months and hope that you made it the rest of the time. But some of the things during the summer is that we were privileged to go to McDonald's at least once during the money months. And that's what we called them, was the money months, because we knew we would get to go play somewhere that you had to pay to get in. That was a big deal. And but during the winter, you didn't ask for anything. We were never the cool kids with the name brand stuff or got all the cool stuff, because you just survived in contracting. That's the concept of contracting that I had growing up. So as far as security, I had it. But what you didn't see behind the scenes was that my mom was an amazing example of steadfastness. Her love for my dad and for our family and for us kids never stopped. But their marriage was not good. They fought constantly, and yet the commitment that they had to one another is what made it last. And that's what stuck to me. And I'm grateful for that, because I always tell my kids, you can't hate your past or the things about your past if you like who you are today. So pay attention to that and look for those things that you can be thankful for that were kind of ugly growing up, but as an adult, That's what made you who you are today. So you have to think about those things. So 1981, Keith and I started dating. 1983, we got married in January of 83. 1984, we had our first son, Keith Jr., he's in the back. 1985, along came Jason. 1987 was Billy. 1988 was Gabe. Finally, in 1990, we had our first daughter, Hannah. 1993 came Paul. And finally, Caleb in 1986. So we were a little busy. So my dream of being a stay-at-home mom was there. But I was also supporting my spouse because he needed that assurance and that security to come home to. He needed to know that he had a home to come home to, even if it wasn't perfect. And believe me, it was never perfect. But as I said, I wanted to share about what my past was as a child and in raising our kids and staying at home, because I wasn't always in the business. I was a true stay-at-home mom. I did all the sports, all the everything for the kids. And you moms know what I'm talking about, all the running around that you do. But the one thing that was in Keith and our dating time was we had lots of heavy discussions, AKA fights. And while we were dating, we talked about priorities of life. And we talked about literally everything from where we were going to spend holidays to when our daughter was going to get her ears pierced. Mind you, we didn't have kids at the time. Didn't even know if we were going to have a daughter. And we started wondering that poor kids in. But holidays, everything. We talked about it. And we took the time to look at the future and know that our decision for me to be a stay-at-home mom, and this is before we're even engaged yet, was already made. When we got married and had kids, I was going to be a stay-at-home mom and he was going to be the sole breadwinner. And that's because we took that time and at least we envisioned what the future was going to be. So for those of you that have, I don't know if I've even answered this here, but when I'm out and about and people say, so what do you do? Because that's generally the first question when you meet someone. Hey, I'm Lillian, what do you do? And my answer has intentionally been, well, first I'm a wife, and then I'm a mom, and I'm a grandma, and I do the books for our company. Because that's a reminder to me what my priorities are. Because you have to set in your mind what your priorities are, or you're not going to live them. And I remember when I met Brian, and he came to our house for the first time, and I told him that. And I said, when my grandkids show up, I sit down and I'm on the floor with my grandkids because that's who I am. I don't care if you're the most important person in the world. My grandkids are the most important to me, and that's what I'm going to choose to live. But that was because I made the priorities in my head and knew what they were so I could follow through with them. So I say all of this because there's the quote of life is a dance. And I've always said that, and I truly believe that. And once you go into business, whether you're a partner in business, whether it's your business, is no different in many ways as to what a marriage is. So your business is a dance, and your marriage is a dance, and your life as a mom is a dance, and everything you do is a dance. So today we're going to figure out how to dance. I looked up the definition of how to dance, and the definition is an artistic form of nonverbal communication. It's taking a series of rhythmical steps. Or if it's a verb, it's moving in a graceful and rhythmical way. So that's the first thing that you're learning once you're in business, once you're married, is you're learning what the dance is. But dance is a nonverbal form of communication. So to dance, you need 4 elements. There's music or rhythm. There's a follow, there's a lead, and there's the dance for the platform. So we're going to talk about those 4 different things. First of all is rhythm and music, which is kind of one of the most important things. Because dance, another quote that I have written here is, dance is a prayer of your feet. So you're learning how to move to that rhythm. But the definition of music is a noun. It's the art of sound and time that expresses ideas and emotions. A tone or sounds employed occurring in a single line or in multiple lines for harmony, or it's a sweet and pleasing harmonious sound. So my question to all of you to take the time to think about is, what's the music that you're listening to in your marriage? What's the music that you're listening to in your business? Is it fast? Is it slow? And what version of that song are you listening to? All these are really important questions. Where's the music coming from? Sometimes the beat changes in the middle of the music. Are you listening to it? So when we take the time to listen to that music, we can then begin to hear it. The rhythm of music unites couples. If you're both playing the same rhythm, you can move together. And whether it be in marriage or whether it be in business, you have to hear the same music, or you can't take the steps in harmony. You'll be moving one way and they'll be moving another. And that's how business is. If you're not listening, you can't react or respond. I think about a cappella music. There's many parts in a cappella music where if you take them separately, I specifically think of the Hallelujah Chorus, Christmas song that most people use it, but there's 8 parts in that song. And it all sounds, if you haven't read the music, it all sounds very dysfunctional. But when you hear the Hallelujah Chorus, it's absolutely incredible and amazing because everybody is singing their own part to the rhythm, to the same rhythm, and it becomes a complete song. But without that, you don't have it. You're all moving and it sounds disorganized and you're not moving together. Everybody's worried about their own part and it never feels united. And that's the importance about music, is that if you're listening to the same rhythm, you're united. So my question is, what music are you listening to? As you're moving along in your business or as you're moving along in your marriage, are you taking the time to find the rhythm with your spouse or with your business partner to be moving together? Or are you both trying to play your own song, just keep turning the volume up louder so that they'll hear it? You have to pause and think about the music that's going and decide together, are we going to have this song at this volume or are we going to move at this song at this volume? I think about 1988. Keith and I had just had our 4th child. So 4 kids in 4 years does a doozy on a body. So I had some health issues. Work wasn't the best. And we were definitely not listening to the same music. In fact, most of the time I say that year I would have just as soon spit on him to come in the door and to have him come home because I didn't like him. And he would have just as soon been spit on them than to have to walk in the door. So in that way, we were united. We didn't like each other very well. But because we were committed to finding the rhythm together, 42 years later, this week, in fact, we're dancing to the same rhythm. So it's not always a pleasant journey, but the commitment to keep moving forward and keep moving together, whether it be in marriage or whether it be in business, is an important part to keep that commitment that you've made. As far as KL, 2024 has been hard, y'all. It's been one of the hardest years we've had. And it's not been because work is hard. It's been because the leadership hasn't been listening to the same rhythm. But in some of that, you have to learn and you have to take the time to step back and to say, why aren't we listening to the same music? So let's stop and figure it out. And instead of making more goals to keep pushing forward, we've chosen to push a pause button to try and listen to each other. So the music, sometimes you have to consider and take the time to do that. The most accomplished people out there, whether it's in business or in marriage, all have the ability to move to different beats and to multiple beats because we have to do that. We have life that happens even whether it's in our marriage or business, it's all together. So you're listening to different rhythms in different areas of your life. So the next 2 elements are leading and following. In order to have a dance, especially a partner dance, you have to have 2 positions, a follow and a lead. The definition of the lead is a guiding head, and a follower this is interesting, is a person who follows another in regard to his or her ideas or beliefs. So a follow chooses to follow, but the responsibility of a leader as you're leading is you have to be trustworthy. You have to make sure that you live a life that's trustworthy for someone to want to follow you. And there are 3 aspects of leaders and followers that we'll go over. It's communication, conflict, and connection. To have leads and follows, you have to have those 3 things: communication, conflict, and connection. So in communication, if a leader's communicating, the follower never has to wonder where you're going, what direction you're going in, because you've clearly communicated that. And whether that be in conversation or whether it be in priorities or whatever it is, means you've discussed it and you've communicated it well. The next one is interesting, is in dancing, the instructions say tension or compression or conflict. Most of us view conflict as not a fun thing, but most of that's because none of us like to really fight. None of us like to have conflict. But in order to dance, think about dance moves. When you're a partner dancing, there's always a little bit of pressure on the back of the follow from the lead. And if you don't have that pressure, you don't know where that lead is taking. So that pressure is necessary in order for the follow to follow, and it's necessary for the lead to put it there. So tension and conflict isn't bad. We all view it as a bad thing because it's not fun, but it's a good thing because tension means there's movement and there's action and there's progression to what you're doing. The last thing is connection. And connection is one of the most important things because without contact, you really don't know where you're going. Contact is a harmonious way of communicating movement to your partner. So if there's successful connection, you know where you're going. Even if the compression is light, they're still leading you to move. So as a leader, we have to make sure not only are we questioning and moving forward and causing a little bit of pressure so that they'll know where we're going and asking those questions, but we're keeping that eye-to-eye contact so that we can communicate non-verbally sometimes that this is the direction that we're going and I want to move that way. Some of the pitfalls of dancing is oftentimes leads and follows, there is hijacking. So the follow will steal the lead, and without even knowing it oftentimes. But it's not necessary if there's connection and communication in that relationship. You know that it's happening. And that usually happens with miscommunication. So even with miscommunication, the goal that you should always have is that you land side by sides. In dancing, it's important, no matter how rough the dance looks or how sloppy it is, as long as you land side by side with your feet in unison with each other, you can recover. And most people may not even notice that there was conflict going on because you were committed to making that communication resolve and end up side by side so that you're moving forward in the same direction. Another interesting thing about dancing is that collision avoidance. Once you choose to become a partner in business or marriage, is that it's both of your responsibility to warn the other when there's danger, when there's bad decisions, when you're about to drop off the edge of the floor. You don't just keep moving because you are a faithful follower, or you don't just let the lead do that because they think it'd be pretty cool trick to jump off the floor and recover. But, when someone's falling a tree, you don't call timber after the tree's already falling. You have to be ahead of the game to do that. There's a story that actually Keith loves to tell. It's a famous conductor, Leonard Bernstein. He was asked, he's an orchestra conductor, and he asked, what's the most difficult part to find for an orchestra? And he paused for a minute and he said, it's second fiddle. And the person was really curious and said, well, why is it second fiddle? He said, because it's really challenging to find someone that wants to enthusiastically play with precision that's considered second. And to me, that's one of the most powerful positions. I love being a wife because my husband is the leader of our home, but it's a privilege to live and do that because you know what? At Big Fat Greek Wedding, guys, I'm the neck that moves the head. If I'm not there to support him to move forward and in his decisions, then he's got no support to hold it up. And it's the same in business. If you're leading the business, you have that second person that is most important to you to make those business decisions to further your company. So for all of us, we all have a second in there somewhere. And it's not that you're weaker or that you're less than or that you're not important, because you are the most important, because you're the one that gives that support to hold them up. The last element is the dance floor and your platform. And that means, definition, it's a set of principles or a plan. So I have questions for you. Is your platform crowded? What do you do if you're trying to dance on too many different floors? You have to make a decision, and that's where the eye contact comes in, is because you have to maintain eye contact and communication with who you're partnering with all the people in your business, with your spouse. If you don't have that eye contact and that communication, you're going to be lost. You're not going to know which floor you're supposed to be on or where you're supposed to go. You have to make a plan for when there's problems or when there's things moving forward. If it's a crowded floor, if there's way too much music, you have to make small steps, not big grand gestures, because you're going to run into something. But you, together with your business partner in your marriage, you have to learn how to make small steps to move forward instead of trying to make these grand gestures and make a statement, because you're going to make the biggest statement with the small steps, because you're going to keep things looking smooth and moving forward. And you have to avoid patterns that have steps against your line of business where you want to go in your marriage. Because if you haven't made a plan for small steps, you're going to be taking awkward steps, and it's not going to look smooth. One of my favorite shows is Dancing with the Stars. I love to watch it because some people are so uncoordinated, but they take these unskilled people and make this partner dance look beautiful, but it wasn't without a lot of work. They had to understand the movements. They had to understand where their lead was taking them. They had to understand what the purpose of the dance was. And so our dances are all intentional, whether it be with business or with our marriages. And it doesn't happen. And honestly, sometimes dance lessons are needed, guys. I know for K&L, that's where we're pausing. We're pausing to take a few dance lessons so that we can move forward, because it's been a little rough, but it's necessary. So remember that communication is good. Conflict isn't always bad, and connection is a must. I want to leave you with Ecclesiastes 3, because you know I can't leave a Bible verse out. So Ecclesiastes 3, 1 through 13. There's a time for everything and a season for every activity under the heavens. A time to be born and a time to die. A time to plant and a time to uproot. A time to kill and a time to heal. A time to tear down and a time to build. A time to weep and a time to laugh. A time to mourn and a time to dance. A time to scatter stones and a time to gather them. And a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing. A time to search and a time to give up. A time to keep up and a time to throw away. A time to tear and a time to mend. A time to be silent and a time to speak. A time to love and a time to hate. A time for war and a time for peace. What do workers gain from their toil? I've seen the burden God has laid on the human race. He's made everything beautiful in its time. And he's also set eternity in the human heart. Yet no one can fathom what God has done from the beginning to end. I know that there's nothing better for people than to be happy and to do good while they live, that each of them may eat and drink and find satisfaction in all their toil. This is the gift of God. So my challenge is to you is, what if you stopped and listened to the music and the rhythm that your business is playing, and you listening to that same rhythm, and then you making sure that the connection is there? And with those questions, how different would your dance be in your business and in your marriage if you did that?